Hello, Star Wars fans. You know, there are just 44 days until Christmas 2022. Yesterday was a really big day for Santa. And the other day, we had the Mike Porter dad joke all queued up, and I missed it. So I'm going to start out today with Wednesday's Mike Porter dad joke, and then we'll do Friday's Mike Porter dad joke at the end of the show. So, right off the beginning, what did C3PO say about the rebellion giving into the Empire? Said, "Don't give up. Droid at all cost." Mike Porter, thank you for that. And I've got my very good friend Meg with us today. Good afternoon, Meg.
Hello, Santa. Hello, Santa's people.
Santa's people. Uh, I don't know if I'd go that far, but thank you all for being here. We do have a lot of Star Wars news this week. It kind of just a little bit of news every single day, it seems. And
Yes,
I saw your video this morning, and I think there's been an update since. Would you say so,
I would say
or
so.
yeah, yeah, that's how I'm reading it. So we can kind of start with that. It's the Studio Ghibli bit, right?
Yes,
Um,
indeed. Grogu and the
yes,
Dustbunnies coming tomorrow.
that's what we expect. Grogu and the Dust Bunnies coming tomorrow, and there's a reason we think that. It's that they're kind of tweeting some hints, and there's an announcement expected any moment. And Grogu and the Dust Bunnies is, oh wait, what's this? No, that's not new. For everybody here, I've got Twitter up and I'm refreshing, and so something new came to the top, and I thought it was uh, an update, but not yet, not yet. It could happen anytime, but it would seem that Grogu and the Dust Bunnies is releasing on Disney Plus tomorrow, and this update is expected to come any moment now, and we hope that that might be for this Grogu and the Dust Bunnies thing. I think that's a pretty safe assumption. Let me
I
just kind
think
of
so.
show people why we're saying that. Let me share my screen here. Dominic says on a Saturday. Weird. I know. I know. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, Grogu's
So
more of a
this
Monday person.
says right here, this culture crave says Studio Ghibli's teasing that their Star Wars project involves Grogu, and a Grogu short film is supposed to release on Disney Plus tomorrow. That was an hour ago. Um, and then this guy yesterday, but this is the actual quote. Well, it just went away from Studio Ghibli. It's got the Lucasfilm logo kind of fading in. Um, so
I was
that's
about to say that they've released something, but they haven't. I just got a pop-up notification telling me about Puppy for Hanukkah, which is available on Disney Plus.
okay. Well, Hanukkah's coming. I mean, it's a little early, but okay. But this is the tweet I was talking about. So this is from the 10th. This is from yesterday, where they've got this Lucasfilm kind of just on a loop, and they're not showing anything else. So that's what we're watching for. Anybody now, Meg? Are you familiar at all with Studio Ghibli?
I am. I've seen quite a few of their movies when I was a
So,
teenager,
so what are
back in
they
the
known for?
19th century. Um, am I right in saying they did Howl's Moving Castle? I like that film.
I don't
My
know.
Neighbor Totoro, another really great one. Um, did they do Spirited Away? I think they did Spirited Away. That's another great one. They've done a lot of great films. Like, even if you're not an anime fan, some of those stories are just excellent.
Yeah, well, good. And a well-known studio. I don't know anything about them. I've not been into anime, and especially not familiar with their works. But
Hmm.
I think a lot of people, when they heard this, thought, well, that must be for the season 2 of Visions, and they were going to say that they were involved in that. but it
I'm
might
kind of
just
glad
be
it's a
this.
Grogu thing.
Yeah,
I think he'll be
yeah.
really cute. But I
I
also can't help but feel they'll do this thing where they might give us Grogu's Order 66 flashback, but then to make sure that by the time of Mando everyone's caught up, they'll do a live action version as well. Just a
I
thought.
see. I see. Well, we'll have to see. And this short that's coming out is maybe not even necessarily canon. I don't think people should go into it thinking that we're going to get a snippet of Grogu's backstory through this. It very well could be this. Uh, they've got a series where it's like your music, the lo-fi kind of
Mhm.
ambience kind of stuff.
I'm just curious what the point of it is. I'm curious if there's a purpose to this short, other than it just looks good, or as you say, it could just be a musical thing.
Right. My impression at this point is it's just sort of a music thing to kind of like chill out to and have some cute cartoon stuff. The end.
Yeah,
Right.
it might
And
just be testing the waters for something bigger, maybe Visions 2.
could be. It would be great if they announced that along with this that they were going to include them for the Visions 2. But I just kind of want folks to set their expectations kind of low, that this might not have anything to do with canon. It might have nothing to do with Grogu's story. It might just be a cute little 20-second cartoon, 30-second, a minute, you know?
It's kind of like what they did with The Simpsons and the Star Wars special. It was like a very short little thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's the Studio Ghibli thing. And like you said, we're expecting an update on that, uh, perhaps even while we're live streaming here.
If we're
I can get
lucky.
that. If we're lucky,
They
we'll
might do
see.
it where they release it and then they tell us on the day, like streaming now. So no advert, nothing, just the minute it's dropped, that's when we find out.
Yeah, and I'm sure folks in the chat here will let us know as well. Hey, Anthony, sorry to hear you've been dealing with COVID. That's never fun. And it's good to see you again. Good to see you again.
Good to see you,
Um,
Anthony. And
yeah,
Daryl. And Star
and
Wars Fits and Jedi Mike and Leia Rose and Baymax and Dominic and Planet Fitness. And I think that's everyone.
I think that might be. That might be. Uh, yeah. Let me see. Just go ahead. RF Gaming. You said him. Novak. Novak's there. So we've had some folks drop in. It's good. We've got 20 people. At least Melon tells me there's 20 people watching now. If you guys could please do the social media stuff, that'd be great. Let people know we're here. We're chilling out with Meg, and as soon as Jason Ward wakes up and gets a cup of coffee, he may join us as well. So we'll see if we get Jason to join us. The other thing that in your video today, you talked about Mando season 3, season 4.
hmm
Season 3 is presumably wrapped. Is that right?
Season 3 wrapped, yeah, a while ago. I think Bespin is unsure if Ahsoka's wrapped. We're kind of assuming it has because of what all the cast have been saying. But Mando season 3 is definitely has been done for a long time.
And season 4 is getting
It's
ready
going to
to.
start quarter one of 2023. I don't know if they mean the fiscal quarter, which would start in December, I think, or they mean the actual start of 2023.
Yeah, and so in your video today, you kind of speculated we'll have 3 live action series in 2023, right? We would assume anyway.
At least 3 Mando ones. I think there's also is the Acolyte 2024. Yeah, 2024. So I suppose, yeah, it'd be Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, Mando.
Okay, and yeah, when we know we're supposed to get Mando 3 on February 22nd. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So uh, between now and the end of the year, we have Andor wrapping up, and then uh, do we have a Bad Batch release date yet?
January 4th.
January 4th. So, but nothing between now and the end of the year except this Grogu short that's coming out
And the Mando trailer.
tomorrow. The Mando trailer is supposed to be Christmas Day. The Mando poster is supposed to come before that.
14th.
So we got December 14th, Mando season 3 teaser poster. 25th, we get the trailer, and then January we get Bad Batch season 2. And we don't know yet the release schedule for that. If it's going to start with 2 or 3 season kickoff or episode kickoff, or if it'll just be episode by episode. And then,
Are you talking about Bad Batch or?
yeah.
I'm not too sure. They might do 2 again. Am I right in saying? Yeah, no, they did. They did Tuesday and Friday for Bad Batch season 1, didn't they? We had 2 in 1 week,
and
not 2 in 1 day.
Yes, and then we have since with the series that the live action series, we've gotten 2 or 3 episodes on the initial night, right? So Bad Batch season 2, I would hope would start with 2 or 3 episodes.
Oh yeah, Matt is right. They did announce 2 at Celebration. It is a 2-episode premiere, which is their way of saying the first one is very slow and boring. That they need to double up, kind of like how Andor had a 15-episode premiere.
Right. So if Bad Batch starts off with 2, they're certainly not going to be done before Mando season 3 starts. Right.
Yeah.
So we would expect to get for the bulk of the Mando season, if not for the entirety of it, to have a Bad Batch episode come out the same night that a Mando episode comes out, because I would expect that the Bad Batch season 2 will have 20 plus episodes. I would hope.
I think it's 16.
16, short.
Yeah, I assume so. And it could be the last. Isn't that what we're hearing?
Well, that is. There's talk that Mando or that Bad Batch season 2 will be the last season of Bad Batch. Do you think it would spin off another series?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think they're going to get rid of all of them just yet. And, we spoke about last year how Omega has a bright future in other shows. Just to answer Anthony's question, between season 1 and 2 of The Bad Batch is 6 months. So she's only 6 months older. Her hair is a bit longer. She's got more experience. Echo's teaching her all about the Imperial ships and identifying them. So she's got a lot of experience in terms of learning from her brothers. But she's not that much older because she doesn't have accelerated aging or anything.
I'm sorry. I'm a little distracted. I got to let folks know we're doing a production release, a deployment for our client for my job right now, and it just ran into an issue, and I've got to see. It's looking. He's asking me a question, so that's I've got to answer this real quick. So I can't think about that, answer that, and what you're discussing at the same time. So Meg, if you could just carry me for a moment, I'd appreciate.
Yeah, I can take care of the group.
Okay.
Let's answer some questions. So Stephen asks, will a trailer for Bad Batch come this month or next month before Mando? Great question. I assume it'll be December, like a month out for Bad Batch season 2, like the final trailer. So I wouldn't be surprised if December has both Mando updates and Bad Batch in terms of trailers and posters and everything. We've already got a lot of posters and first looks at the Bad Batch season 2. A lot of like third-party websites which have been approved by Lucasfilm have been selling those like wanted posters where you've got like Omega, Echo, Wrecker, Hunter, and Crosshair. Meg has taken over, says Dominic. Omega looks great in season 2. I agree, and I think Daryl asked if I think we'll see Omega in Ahsoka. A lot of people keep saying Ahsoka for Omega. I really don't think that's the place. This is more wishful thinking and fan speculation, but I think if Jon Favreau had any sense in terms of a Boba season 2, he would do this big quest of Boba trying to like find his long lost sister, because by that point, if Omega's like a Mandalorian or a bounty hunter, he could accidentally come across some of the things she's done across the galaxy and then find out through someone that he's related to her. And, you know, Boba is still very much in that place where he misses his father and the Camino flashbacks. Even if he's healed a little bit, I think that would be the place in Book of Boba. I don't know about Ahsoka. I don't see how Omega plays into Ahsoka's story in any sort of way that'd be meaningful to her story arc. Because she's not a Jedi. She's not Force sensitive as far as we know.
Right. I agree with you. And I think that as you were kind of outlining that for a Book of Boba Fett season 2, that rhymes very, very similarly to the original script we had for Luke and his sister. Right. His sister was
that is true.
Supposedly hidden away somewhere else. Trying to remember her name originally. It's Lilith, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
In Empire Strikes Back, when he's having the discussion on Dagobah, his father is supposed to appear as a Force ghost, Anakin, and tell him how proud of Luke he is, and that his sister is out there, Lilith. And then the thought was, after the original trilogy, the original plan was that the next sequel would involve, or the sequel story originally would have been him going to find his sister, and she was going to be involved in some issues, and that would kind of finish that Skywalker arc with him finding his sister, rescuing her, and them working together to fight off evil in the Empire or the galaxy, and come to a conclusion with everyone lives happily ever after. But so if you had that kind of set up in Mando season 2, he finds out in a similar kind of fashion, like, you have a sister. What? What's her name? Omega. What? Where is she? Well, she's wherever, right? And then that could be part of the story.
I think that's so interesting, and I love the idea of maybe Echo is with her. It's a bit of a stretch, but I also saw someone said, would she be in her mid to late teenage years by the Mandalorian? No, Omega would be 42.
Yeah, she would be in her 40s.
She'd be Boba's age or thereabouts.
Right? Thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, she might be a slight bit younger, but not
a little bit, but not by much. She was already alive during Attack of the Clones, which is kind of mind-boggling when you think about it.
It really is, because she very well could have been on. Well, she was not more than could have been. She was definitely on Camino when Boba was on Camino. They were both there, and that he didn't know anything of her, nor would I assume that Django knew anything of her. Right? This was a secret that Nala Se kind of had. And I don't know that they'd let Django know what they were doing.
I think if anyone else knew about Omega, it would have been Shaak Ti.
Maybe. You're right. Okay, I mean, she was the Jedi ambassador on Camino. She spent a lot of time there.
I do think that the fact that she was Nala Se's medical assistant is very important. I think, given the fact that Nala Se now works on Mount Tantis, she might demand the Empire to go get Omega, because Omega knows some of the cloning secrets. Maybe Nala Se needs her. Maybe that's a request that Nala Se puts in. And I still am holding on to that theory that Dominic pointed out to me, and it sparked a video that I posted last year, that on the data vault on Scarif, one of the abandoned projects of the Empire was called Mark Omega. So it's like, was that a project to find Omega? Mark as in like to find, to cross, to seek after, rather than Mark as the first name. I wouldn't be surprised if that project we do see come to fruition in season 2. I also think season 2 might give us some of the rebellion stuff connecting to Andor in some sort of way, because we see Omega on Coruscant, we see Masamida and Palpatine, so maybe something leads them there.
Very well
What
could be. I'm sorry. Again, I'm having to deal with an issue, so thank you for your patience. Go ahead.
So the time jump between season 2 of The Bad Batch and season 2 of Andor. Okay, so season 2 of Andor is 4 BBY, and The Bad Batch season 2 is 18 BBY. So what would that be? 14 years? No, that can't be right. Yeah. No, I think that is right. Because if season 2 of Bad Batch is 6 months after season 1, which was 19 BBY, or coming to the end of it, then there is a bit of a jump. But Bail Organa, for one thing, is around in both. So we could definitely see some crossover there. Or maybe that theory that we'd see a clone in Andor might be what happens in the Bad Batch. We know that Rex is still out there, and he's probably going to help Cody, I imagine, if Cody has a redemption arc. So maybe there are other clones. Maybe there are those Coruscant guards like Commander Fox and Commander Thyre. Maybe some of the others. I'd be interested to see if there's more clones that are redeemed. We do see a very brief shot in the season 2 trailer of these young clones who seem to have formed like a colony underground, and I wonder if that's going to play into it. I don't know if you remember that one, Santa.
No, I don't. I don't, and I was only partially with you.
Cody were like knocking on doors. I wonder if clones who didn't have the chip or whatever somehow form like a rebellion. That'd be really cool.
That is a really good question. It sort of goes along with. At first, we only thought that Luke, you're your only hope, right? Like he was the only surviving Jedi. Come to find out, well, but there's also Leia, right? No, there's another, his sister, right? So we know that was where we started, but now we know there were lots of other Jedi survivors in that time period.
Yes.
The same very well could be true with these clone troopers. Like we know that of a handful, but there were so many clone troopers in the universe. How many of them are still active in any type of manner? What are they doing? And could they kind of come together in an uprising or almost like a rebellion, right? Like, is there a subgroup of them who are out there kind of fighting?
Very well, could be. And it's interesting you bring up the Jedi, because we do see the little Wookiee in Gunji in the trailer.
Gunji, yes.
And we see Tarful. So we're going to go to Kashyyyk, and we actually are at a time period right now just before Luminara and Julie gets arrested. So we might see her on Kashyyyk.
Yeah, and
because in Rebels she has a gruesome death.
Yeah, she does. But Stephen brings up a good point. We know that there were young clones working together in a factory. It could tie in with Legends as well. There were younger clones that were brought in. I'm having a hard time remembering. They were specifically classified as a type, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of Order 66, and I can't remember now. They were sort of like a battalion. It was, I don't think they were like Death Troopers, but they were something, right?
Yeah, they're in the comics.
Yeah, that's what I was remembering.
Like the last generation of Kamino.
Yeah. And again, my apologies, everybody. I've got this deployment issue that's going on right now, and if it completes, I told Meg right before we came on that I was hoping it would complete before the show started, and everything would be good. But it's still kind of lingering. There's a couple final things that are are failing, and I'm getting asked by our database administrators, "Hey, what's going on with this?" So we're debugging that. We're talking Star Wars. Meg is doing a great job, and I am floundering. So thank you for putting
You're
up
really
with
not,
me.
Santa. You're busy with your work and things. You're not floundering.
I'm trying hard. I'm trying hard.
You're keeping a
There's
surprisingly good amount of focus between both.
it's good. Well, thank you all very much. There's a couple of other topics to bring up, and let me just look here. Um, so Skeleton Crew is also wrapping up, right?
Yeah, it should be done soon, shouldn't it?
It should, and um, we did get the cast announcement for the Acolyte. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But we still kind of don't have a full cast for Skeleton Crew, do we? I mean, we know some, right?
We
We
know
know a
some.
handful. But they also gave us a nice little synopsis with the. Let me share this again. We got this nice little synopsis with the Acolyte, and it's one of these that's super frustrating again because I see what I did. I closed the window. A second. I got ahead of myself here, but let me bring up this StarWars.com bit on the Acolyte because they did have a synopsis that we kind of talked about earlier in the week, but where is it? Let's just put it in Acolyte. I had it up, but here we go. All right, so on StarWars.com, this isn't coming through trades or speculation, anything like that. No kind of nonsense. It's straight from StarWars.com. They give us the cast. We'll come right back to that. But they also gave us this little synopsis, right? It says it's a mystery thriller that will take viewers to a galaxy of shadowy secrets, emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era. Here it is. A former Padawan reunites with her Jedi Master to investigate a series of crimes, but the forces they confront are more sinister than they ever anticipated, and we get this nice cast. The Acolyte is nowhere close to as far along as the Skeleton Crew, but we don't have this kind of detail from Star Wars on the Skeleton Crew. We've got very
Yeah.
little, in fact. And so just to kind of wrap this up, and again, we talked about this earlier in the week, but how well do you think that this Padawan reuniting with her Jedi Master synopsis lines up with what we heard from Ahsoka and some of these other folks earlier?
It could really go either way. It's way too vague. Former Padawan, does that mean it's like an Ahsoka type character where they just abandon the Jedi Order? Or by former Padawan, do they mean someone who turned to the dark side and confronts her master again? It's a bit too vague. It could literally be telling us what the leaks told us, but as Jason says, what Ahsoka and others might have been looking at was the concept art and making assumptions from that. So,
Exactly.
because we know they have the concept art, we've seen it,
Yep.
but it could be unrelated as well. I really don't know. I'm inclined to believe them simply because they got the Tales of the Jedi stuff right. They clearly weren't, BSing us. And I can't help but feel that Plagueis will play into it somehow. Leslie Headland talking about, the Phantom Menace, the expanded universe material. And the thing with Disney is that because they, decanonized all of the expanded universe, they can make Plagueis anything they want. And they almost did that for the Rise of Skywalker. They almost had Palpatine have a completely different Tor Valum on Mustafar. So I think they have an open blank slate as to what they do if they introduce Plagueis. But
Yeah.
considering the Mune homeworld is supposed to show up, the one that we saw in the Clone Wars, I think it's safe to say they'll keep him as a Moon and keep doing kind of that stuff with him.
I think so as well, and I think in the Acolyte, they really have a lot of options. as you mentioned, I always push back a little bit on the decanonized, because I don't think it was ever canon. But so to me, the decanonized implies that it was canon. Now it's not. It's just labeled now Legends, where before it was more vague. That's my own take on it.
Okay, how about rebranded as the expanded universe?
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Rebranded it. That's perfect. Uh,
So, I mean, to a lot of people, those legends, novels, and stories mean a lot. For the majority of the 90s, I mean, Plagueis didn't exist back then, but a lot of the expanded universe that did exist in the 90s, that's really all people had to go off. So when James Luceno released Darth Plagueis, that was our first proper insight into Palpatine's master. We had the Revenge of the Sith visual guide, which told us a bit about him, but nothing else apart from that speech that Palpatine gives to Anakin. So people do hold on to these characters, and I know you're not a big fan of Plagueis yourself, Santa, but to some people, the mystery and the mystique surrounding him is more important than actually knowing about him explicitly in canon.
well, I am not opposed to Plagueis at all. It's just that I think he's overhyped and that his book wasn't any good. But I would love to see his story told more directly, and that could be the Acolyte could set us on that path to see it, and I would be very, very much in favor of that. Um,
I talked about this a bit today. I think fan service does matter, whether you want to call it fan service or not. I do think familiar characters get people so excited in projects where you don't expect them, which is why I think if Andor, if I had one wish for the last 2 episodes of Andor, just give us one little cameo. Just give us
yeah,
one character who we know from other things. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want it to be linked to George Lucas. I want it to be its own thing. I disagree. I kind of love when Star Wars gives you the impression that it's something very different and then ties it into what we already know, which is why for me, The Mandalorian Season 2 is excellent between Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, Luke. I love those kind of stories. I like the interconnectivity of Star Wars. I like that it continues the story, so to speak. And everyone's got their own opinion on it. Some people don't like that at all. Some people want everything to be separate. But for me, I would love for there to be a cameo in something like The Acolyte or Andor, or I mean, Andor season 2 probably will have more familiar characters because we're sort of stepping on the toes of Star Wars Rebels and leading up to Rogue One. But The Acolyte is one of those things where if we see Darth Plagueis, I'll definitely cheer because we have new characters. We have Aura, we have Lee Jung-jae's character. So just throwing one or two in there for me can make a show feel more wholesome as a Star Wars project. But again, everyone has their own opinion on it.
yeah, and I agree with you. I do think fan service it can be an essential part of a successful Star Wars project. And as good as as Andor is and has been, um, that is the one thing that's kind of missing that a lot of people point to for some reason why its numbers aren't better. Even though it's a really great series, and I think um, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, and Andor's wrapped up, that it will rise to be one of the very top Star Wars projects of all time. But um, I think that's one of the things that can be pointed to explain why maybe the viewership isn't what a lot of people maybe hope that it would be. Um, so I need to step away for just a second. If you could maybe answer
Yes.
Anthony's question, and I'll be back as soon as possible.
So just to Santa's point, I mean, when it comes to when we're talking about cameos and familiar characters, I think online discourse in the Star Wars fandom misses the point in a lot of ways of what general Star Wars fans think. Because if you meet Star Wars fans out in the world who aren't necessarily on here every day and looking for Star Wars news actively, to them, recognizing familiar characters is everything, or at least connecting it in some way. I don't think the wider fandom necessarily wants everything to be brand new. That there's kind of like a novelty to that, but there's also a lure in connecting it to properties we already know. So Anthony asks, what are your thoughts on the rumors that Keanu Reeves is being cast in the... No, I think that's bullshit. I have a feeling I know where that comes from, but no, I don't think there's a Sith Star Wars trilogy. I don't even think there's a Star Wars trilogy coming out, so let alone Keanu Reeves. Jedi Mike says, do you think an aged up Omega is your most anticipated? It's definitely one of like the characters I would anticipate the most in live action. I'm really excited to see the Ghost Crew in the Ahsoka show, and possibly what comes in Andor 2. I've got a very hot take of what my most anticipated thing is, especially in the Mandalorian sort of universe. I know this is not popular, but I can't wait for them to do more with the cloning stuff. We know where it leads, and whether you like that or not, I think the journey can be really fun. So I think what they're doing, what the Imperial Remnant's doing, the disagreements between different Remnant warlords, which is what Giancarlo Esposito teased, I think that's what I'm most looking forward to. What about Cal Kestis? I need more of him. I hope Cal Kestis comes into live action in one of the shows. I know Cameron Monaghan's spoken about his desire for it, but he said it's not going to be until they're done with the Jedi sub-franchise, the video games. I think there's more story to be told there before he's kind of introduced. Ronnie says what happened to Santa. He had to step out for a moment. Just talking to my dad about an aged up Omega, and he was so intrigued about how she could fit with Grogu. Again, it's one of those things that I don't necessarily think Lucasfilm's thinking of connecting these new characters together rather than how they can connect it to the shows more broadly. So what I was talking about earlier with Boba Fett is season 2 could take the direction of him looking for his long-lost sister if he finds out about her. Star Wars Fit says, do you think if Zeb is in Ahsoka that the CGI will be good for him? This is the kind of risk they take if we do see Zeb. How are they going to do him? Is it going to be CGI? Is it going to be, full practical with a costume? Is it going to be a mix of both? Zeb Orrelios was designed to be a Lasat for Star Wars Rebels as a cartoon character. I don't think back when they created Star Wars Rebels, they had in mind that one day this would be a live action thing. So they've kind of dug themselves a hole in that sense. But I remember Jason saying that he doesn't know if Zeb is even going to be in Ahsoka. He's heard about, Hera and Sabine, but he didn't hear about Zeb. There was that one guy who was cast, that very tall guy, and we kind of all made the assumption maybe he's going to be Zeb. But they've got to do this balance where they don't make him intimidating and they don't make him too cheesy. Like, don't do the Phantom Menace type CGI. Kino is not smoke. I never said Kino was smoke. Santa needs to feed his reindeers. Santa went to beat the elves. Meg, in season 2 of Andor, is there a possibility that we see a young actor play a younger version of Han Solo? Maybe. I don't know about what they're going to do with Han Solo, because around the time of the Book of Boba Fett dropping, they had, all these really reliable outlets like Big Screen Leaks were talking about how they've heard Han Solo is going to be in it. So I don't know if they had plans originally to bring him into live action through the same kind of deep fake thing they're doing with Luke, but it just didn't pan out. Zeb went off with Callus, didn't he? Yeah, they went to Lasan with the elderly woman from the species, and the other guy, I think Callus was trying to make things right based on what the Empire had done to Zeb's species. I didn't even know there was a female astromech droid, says Dominic. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there are a few. The episode taught us that swimming is a very important life skill. Learn to swim, folks. See, this is what I don't understand about Kino. And setting aside Tony Gilroy basically saying, we don't know if he's dead or not, it just seems like a very stupid decision, even if you don't know how to swim, to stay behind and potentially just get zapped by the Imperials when the stampede is over. Jedi Mike says, do you think people will look back and appreciate the zeitgeist and politics of Andor, really speaking to prison reform and other social justice topics for me? I mean, I don't necessarily think Andor is important enough in the zeitgeist of actual politics, but it does have a message. I mean, after Fiona Shaw came out and talked about the Trumpian world, I really thought this series would have a more overtly political tone to it, but it's been handled really well to keep that balance between what's space opera and what's not, and I think everyone can find meaning to that. There were some overt things, though, especially in episode 10. Mon Mothma talks about arranged marriage. There was a very clear message there that's really not ambiguous. Jay Kelly says, is Chopper going to be in it? I think Chopper's definitely in Andor Season 2. Anthony, I want your opinion on this Star Wars character and if you think we ever see him in live action. Darth Vasate. Do you mean Vitiate? Again, it's another, expanded universe character who I can't see playing into anything. But you never know. Planet Fitness says, do you think Boba will figure out about Omega in Mando season? Here's the thing, I don't think The Mandalorian's going to do that. It has to be another season of Boba. Because Mando has a lot going for it. We've got what Grogu's future is. We've got Mando and his atonement, Bo-Katan and the Darksaber. We've got the armor. We've got all of those other clans on Mandalore who we saw in the trailer. I think season 3 is packed to the rim where we don't have enough time for Omega. I could be wrong. We said things about Mando season 2 and it completely blew our minds, went in a completely different direction to what we expected. Chopper war crimes in live action. I think he's killed more people than any droid or person in Star Wars. Robert St. Clair says, using a dead body as a makeshift floaty and kick yourself to shore. Yeah, exactly. Why would you stay behind? He's like, I can't swim. Okay, but get in the water, you're going to get killed. That's your best chance. Or hold on to one of those, really big guys, one of the other floor leaders, and just let them drag you. Screw it. I'm also curious to know how far away the land was from the ocean, because when we saw Narkina 5, when Andor first goes there and it pans across the planet, it looks like it's mostly ocean for a good few dozen miles or so. I don't know. I guess we're just happy that Andor and Melshi made it, but we kind of knew that going into the show. Dominic says, even if I couldn't swim, I'm jumping in that water. Screw that prison. Exactly. Andy Serkis's character just gave up. But I also feel like it gave meaning to why he was so emotional before. He needed to be a leader when everyone needed him, knowing that he himself wouldn't make it. So that's what I hold on to in terms of a profound takeaway from that episode, or that moment in the episode. Anthony says, Meg, I was on Twitter and people were talking about Star Wars, and this conversation was saying that Star Wars should stay out of the political, social justice crap. You're losing fans by doing that. I really find that perspective flawed, because if Star Wars was overtly being social justice or whatever you want to call it, yeah, I agree. But when you have people saying that the sequel trilogy, for example, was overtly political, I think that's the biggest load of BS I've ever heard about Star Wars, because if social justice equals Rey is a strong character, then those people have no actual idea about what social justice is, or the political side that would say that. I don't think it's losing viewers. I think the reason a lot of Star Wars fans, if you want to say, walked away from the franchise, didn't care anymore, it's more the quality of the stories, and I think Boba Fett and Kenobi did more damage. I don't think it's political. Some Star Wars YouTubers and some people out there want to make it seem like there's this big culture war and that it's all about politics, but it's really not. Your average person, I don't think, cares enough about that. I just think it was poor storytelling. Hello, Santa.
I'm back. Good news. The deployment is done, so I can ignore that now and focus on what you are talking about. So we can get back up to speed. I heard a little bit in one ear as I was talking, and Meg, you're the best. You're absolutely the best. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Santa.
On the Andor political front, there was a bit in there. I saw the interview. I think it was on Variety, where they where he kind of gave away some upcoming um, seasons information. Like, we know one character specifically that's not going to die this season, maybe not next,
Hmm.
but well, not maybe till the end of next season. But in that as well, he was talking about kind of writing in a the political aspect. He'd have been put in those terms, but not in a lesson of the week kind of format, but rather it's more subtle, right? And there was one part where I commented during the live stream. I think it was around episode 7 or 8, where they were talking about how much power they have, and Deidre actually used the new power in a very effective way, and kind of made her peers look pretty bad. And she was complimented on it, and kind of put a target on her back.
Hmm.
That policy that they espoused in there is very similar to some things that we did here in the United States after the terrorism attacks, is the Patriot Act, so they could do like surveillance without getting court orders. And so they wouldn't have to go to the courts to say, hey, we want to surveil this person, and get a judge to issue, say, a wiretap or something like that. They could just go ahead and do it. So there were things like that that were kind of implied in that mirror the Patriot Act, for example. But it
Yeah.
wasn't in your face like anti whatever, right?
And this is a great point. I personally think, in retrospect, Fiona Shaw should never have compared the show to the Trumpian world, because not only do you isolate people, but also, looking at the show for what it is now, it's such a misrepresentation. It's almost equating one thing with something very different, if that makes any sense. I
It
think she should
absolutely
have said,
does.
there are some things in this show that speak to the politics of the real world. And we were speaking before the show dropped about the Ukraine war
Yeah,
and what's going on over there. And that's a better comparison, even if this was filmed way before. It's very relevant and speaks to a lot of those themes. But I
absolutely.
think she kind of shot herself and the show in the foot in a way by explicitly making about something that it doesn't feel like at all. So I think the expectation going into it after she said that was very misplaced.
I absolutely agree with you, and I reckon it back to something very silly. And I understand what was going on with the your Snoke theory sucks, right? Um, they were having fun, fans were having fun, but that comment just spurred some vitriol against them that they didn't need. And for people to have theories about, uh, oh, uh, what's Andy Serkis's character's name in Andor?
You know,
Yeah, Kino. That, oh, Kino is going to be Snoke, right? Again, a bad Snoke theory. You don't have to come
absolutely.
out and say, your Snoke theory sucks. Fans are having fun. That's what it amounts to, right? And don't take it so seriously. Don't get so worked up over something like that. And why intentionally drive a wedge into something that's already fractured, right? Like, we're trying to heal it, not break it apart. And I 100% agree with what you said. For Fiona to come out and say what she said about the Trumpian politics being in it, and they were going to go straight at him. It's not in your face that way. Watching the show, we're 10
No.
episodes in. There's nothing in there that makes you say, "Oh, this show is anti-Trump," and get a political activism started. It doesn't exist, at
It's
least not
also
at a
very like
surface
hot
level.
button issue at the moment. I feel like is kind of a selfish thing for her to have done, to imposed maybe what she got out of the series as the default for what the series is. And those two things
Yeah.
are not the same, because you can see an analogy or an allegory in a show without it being explicitly about that. And
100%.
we've never
Yeah.
heard Tony Gilroy once talk about Trump or once talk
No,
about modern day politics. So I do think that was a very misplaced comment.
I agree. And it's one thing if an actor is taking some inspiration from something in real world, right? It could be whatever. It could be something going on in their personal family. It could be something going on that doesn't have any national attention at all. Or it could be Trump, or it could be whatever. But when you come out in an interview and you kind of misrepresent what you're using as your personal inspiration as what the show is about, then you kind of pigeonhole people into trying to see what you're seeing. And it doesn't need to do that, especially not in a heavy handed kind of way. So,
And every time I saw Martha, as amazing as her character is, I was just thinking of what Fiona Shaw said. Every episode, I'm thinking, I'm trying to find her perspective. And it just seems, because before the show I said, when the show drops, I'll speak about it more and we can properly assess. Well,
yeah.
we're almost at the end of the series, and I fundamentally disagree with her perspective. And it's also an article that Matt Rissman shared in the Discord where someone compared Luthen to Marx, like Karl Marx. And I
Oh,
thought that's the stupidest comparison you could make.
yeah. Well, and look, I was a political science major in college. And there's lots of times where you'll take a writing. One of the most famous ones is Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. People will go and make comparisons to World War One, World War Two, and make analogies out of, say, the Shire and Mordor and all of that to what was going on in Europe in the early 20th century. So that's and then you go and you see interviews with Tolkien. He's like, nah, that wasn't really what I had in mind. And then that you can have debates over, well, whether he had that in mind or not. It's part of who he is. It's part of what he lived through. It's part of what his perception of culture is. And when you're writing this story for it to be reflective of your own worldview and what's going on in the world is only natural. And so people can debate it, and people can make connection to things, and people can analyze it for the length of time. As I think Kay put it in, or Jay Kelly, there it is, right? Jay Kelly put it earlier. It's historical oppressive systems used as a way to flesh out fictional fascist empire, right? And that Lucas has said, well, he took some inspiration from Vietnam, the Vietnam War here with the U.S. and Nixon's regime was part of his inspiration for Andor and the Ewoks and all of that. Well, but he's also using World War II imagery, and he's using footage of World War II dogfights for like X-wings and TIE fighters. There's a lot of that. You can see the exact mirroring of these fights. So there's lots of things that kind of went in there, and you could kind of look at it from a theoretical or an analytical kind of way and come up with different kinds of results. But when you go and you superimpose that on the front, and one of the things that
Yes.
people have complained a lot about modern day storytelling is that they're so heavy-handed with it. And rather than letting you come up with maybe a connection that you can make, or instead what they do is they say, this is how you should think about it. And that
Yeah,
causes people to kick back, right?
I agree. And it's off-putting. And if you misrepresent a show or a movie going into it, you don't let the viewer see that for themselves or in the way that they can interpret it. Because it kind of feels like some of these creators might assume the political stance of the viewer beforehand. And especially in Hollywood, they might assume people have, they're so out of touch with real people
Yeah.
outside of Hollywood. Many people who A, don't care about politics, B, have a much more like moderate view of politics than others. And it's off-putting, especially when you have one of the main actors saying something like that. And with George
Right.
Lucas, it was so well blended into it, very similar to Andor. Now that we've seen the show, or at least most of
Yeah.
it, it's so well blended that if a kid sees it, like when I was a kid and I saw Star Wars, I didn't understand any of the wider political references. I didn't have to. You can
Right.
take it at face value. And George Lucas kind of blended his various inspirations, because what you said about the Vietnam War, you can also see just as many similarities between A New Hope and The Hidden Fortress by Kurosawa.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's what makes the original trilogy so brilliant. And you can argue that some of the things in the prequel trilogy weren't as delicately written, right? They were more heavy-handed, um, specifically naming figures and being more bold and direct in the political statement George was intending for the audience to take away. But even at that, as a kid, you can watch The Phantom Menace and not get anything at all about politics anywhere, right? It's like, what? What are you talking about? I'm a kid. You're watching pod racing and, you know, space
Yeah.
battles, and it's a fun
And to this
movie.
day, many Star Wars fans don't even understand the politics of the Phantom Menace because they're very
Right.
confusing.
Yeah, right. Well, I heard friends over at All New Nerds mention one of the characters in the prequel trilogy is Lot Dodd, right? Like,
Mhm.
and there was a U.S. Senator Lot, and there's a U.S. Senator Dodd, and they're Republicans, and that George Lucas, you name one of the bad guys, Lot Dodd. That's pretty, you know, right? Black and white. It's plain. It's in your face. But how many kids know who U.S. senators were in the 1990s, and what political party they
No.
aligned to, and what was going on in modern day? Um,
I have
there
the
was a
Lot Dodd
modern,
action figure, and this is the first time I'm hearing about this. But it could also be a British US thing. Like
right,
us as Brits probably didn't understand that very deep cut reference to one specific Republican senator or whatever.
right, exactly. So when you talk about timeless politics, well, that was very time like capsule. But the way that he blended it in there, like I said, like at the time he wasn't as clever about it, right? But it was still brilliant in that a 10-year-old can watch it, 12-year-old, or even a 20-something-year-old could watch it and be like, I didn't even get that. You
Yeah.
kind of got to be tuned into American politics and what's going on in the U.S. Senate. And a lot of people, they do those street interviews with people all the time and say, who is, name your U.S. senator. And they're like, my what? They don't know, right? The vast majority of people have no idea. So that they would catch that or not catch it, it doesn't surprise me. The point is just that a lot of times, um, modern storytelling doesn't allow you to take that message away later and apply it to something. They're telling you, here's what you need to think about it. And we're going to, make it explicit, put it right in your face.
And that's why
George
I'm
was,
so glad there wasn't a deliberate Trumpian mention, because
yes,
in 10 years, that's just going to age terribly.
exactly. Exactly. And there were lots of fun little gifts and stuff that came out right after that interview. But, hey, it's all good. Want to bring up a couple of other stories that were in the news. And this will tie into classic Lucasfilm for us. Uh, we have a writer, director associated with Star Wars, and we have a writer director that's no longer associated with Star Wars. Right, back to back stories that came out. The first one that Shawn Levy is in talks to direct a Star Wars film. Um, I think after it's like Lucy in the football, right? Did you use
Mhm.
that analogy in one of your videos, or did I hear it somewhere else?
You might have heard it somewhere else.
Okay, it's the Lucy Charlie Brown, right? Like
Yeah.
only so many times can you run it to football and kick it before you like, no, you're not going to do it. You're going to pick the football up, and I'm going to fall on my back. So, uh, will Shawn Levy actually direct, a Star Wars film? What do you think? What are the chances that he actually does?
Probably like 20% chance.
I think that's safe.
I
think
think we've
that's
now
safe.
had 13 directors announced, and we've not seen any of their movies because
Yeah,
they never came to fruition.
and there's lots of speculation if they ever will, right? Patty Jenkins is perhaps at the top of the list right now, where she quit Cleopatra to work on Rogue Squadron, and it's by all accounts dead in the water. Like
Mhm.
nothing's happening. Doesn't
And
mean that it's
yesterday
canceled,
was the 7-year anniversary of Ryan Johnson's trilogy being announced.
right? And that's the other, right? Like so Ryan says, well, yeah, we're still going to do it sometime. I'm I'm still talking to Kathy from time to time. We're still saying it's going to happen, but will it ever? Right? Um,
No
it's not
idea.
a, it's not officially been announced. It's not happening, but I think most people are saying, yeah, it is never going to happen. They're just going to move on with their lives, and that'll be the end of it. And I think that thought is starting to attach itself to Patty Jenkins's movie as well. Like, well, it's not officially been taken, like we're not ever going to do it, but there's no indication at all that they ever will. And so, will Shawn Levy do a Deadpool Star Wars? Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
Will Ryan Reynolds play Darth Plagueis? Who knows?
I will
just
say, though, expect really, really big announcements at Star Wars Celebration.
yeah, next year,
Yeah.
absolutely. I hope so. I hope so.
Oh, there will
Um,
be. There'll be some really cool things.
um, so in the same vein, J.D. Dillard's no longer directing a Star Wars film. And when I saw this come out earlier in the week, I was like, I never knew that he was. Um, I think it for whatever reason, I didn't really catch on to J.D. Dillard working on a Star Wars, but there
Yeah,
is
I don't think it was
documented
ever announced. So I think it's a nothing burger.
for the most part. But they're the same sort of stories ran, right? Like I went there's links to stories that came out at the time saying, "Hey, J.D. Dillard's working on a Star Wars or in talks with Lucasfilm to do a Star Wars," and then it's not happening. It's a lot like this one, right? Like Lucasfilm didn't come out and say, "Hey, Shawn Levy's going to do a Star Wars," like they did with Patty or Ryan or Taika, right? But Lucasfilm didn't come out and say that. So will Shawn's project ever make it to the light of day? Who knows? At this point, I'm skeptical. I'd be like, I'm not going to get excited. I'm not going to get outraged. I'm not going to get anything on this until I see something more concrete. And even then, it's like maybe should weigh it. Like we'll wait and see. Like
Yeah. I
so
don't
we
know.
talked about
I'll believe it when I see it.
that's the way I am. That's the way I am. It's like, okay, interesting. Interesting. That'd be cool. If we could speculate about it a lot. Like, will it happen? That's a fun speculation. What might he do? That could be fun speculation. Would he bring Ryan Reynolds into Star Wars?
I
They've
hope
been
not. He's
they've
one of
done a
those
lot of
actors you
projects
see
together.
everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and would it be a tongue in cheek, break the fourth wall kind of thing, like Deadpool? Or
I
would it
don't think
be
Star Wars needs that. I
I
really don't think
don't
Star
either.
Wars needs that.
I honestly don't think so either. And I don't know that we need a comedy. Um,
No.
people were worried about Taika doing a comedic kind of take on Star Wars or inserting unnecessary humor into Star Wars Taika brand humor. I'm a little concerned that J.D. Dillard and his how many projects he's done now with Ryan Reynolds, including Fall Guy, right? And Fall Guy's got some great Star Wars references in it. It's fun. It's a fun movie. Have you seen it?
Which one?
Fall Guy.
No, I've been
Oh,
recommended it.
it's a fun movie. It's way better
But
than I thought it
to your
was going to
point
be.
about comedy, there was a rumor, wasn't there, like 2 years ago, that Star Wars is working on a comedy film, and everyone lost their minds. It's
Right. And
the one genre I don't want Star Wars to tap into. Star Wars works when you sprinkle comedy.
Free
Like,
Guy.
as much as I don't like The Rise of Skywalker, C-3PO was brilliant in that film. He's the only reason to watch The Rise of Skywalker. Anthony Daniels' performance. Star Wars needs like little sprinkles of comedy, but not
Yeah.
a full slapstick with a laugh track in the background.
Yeah, I agree. And if you're going to do something like that, it should be a Lego holiday special,
Exactly.
right?
That's the only acceptable place.
That's what I think. Like you watch a Lego special or a Lego Star Wars, they can be hilarious, and they are, for the most part, just funny movies. But
I think Jason woke up. He tweeted.
oh, is Jason finally wake up?
Yeah, he said he thinks it's Grogu and the Dustbunnies, the Studio Ghibli.
Oh, okay.
Or as he
Well,
pronounces it, Studio Jiggly.
I just did a refresh just to see if anything came up on the story. Uh, so, Jason, you're awake. Where are you? What what have we not talked about yet? Andor episode 10. We
Yes.
kind of danced around it a little bit. A wonderful episode. I thought it was great. It executed
It
tremendously
was
well.
the perfect episode.
And uh, and I saw Mark, our friend Baymax. He said that he thought um, the heist was better than the jailbreak. As far as
Interesting.
yeah, what would
Different
you say?
genres. Two different genres.
They are
One was more like video game action spy thriller, and the other was just an intense escape. There's nothing else I can say about it. I loved the
yeah.
episode. I've got a video tomorrow lined up where I'm going to break down Luthen's speech and then reveal what I think Luthen's backstory is based on it.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Luthen's speech. There were two pretty significant speeches in this episode.
Yes.
Luthen's was certainly impactful. Really an awesome speech. And then, of course, the other in the jailbreak itself, right?
Mhm.
I really don't know that there's a lot more they could have done in this episode to improve it. I have no complaints whatsoever. I loved the episode, and that it set up the finale, the final two episodes.
Mhm.
Just kind of looking in the crystal ball, and we'll talk about it maybe more next week once we kind of get closer to the episode. These last two episodes, is it just going to be full out action? Are we
Well,
going to fall back?
here's what they did right. They're done with the prison, and I'm so happy about that. Because once you've got Cassian and Melshi out, we've got a blank slate for the finale. Anything can happen in these last two episodes. Are they going to? I mean, we know there's going to be the space battle with the lightsaber ship, the Kyber crystal fueled
Right.
ship that Luthen owns. But I wonder what's going to spark that. I think the Anto Krieger stuff's really important. I think Luthen's not as careful as he thinks he should be.
Yeah.
And I think Dedra Miro might kind of get closer to that. We know there's an uprising on Ferrex, but how they fill out the rest of it's interesting. Now, the one character no one's focusing on is Mon Mothma. And I really, really find that fascinating because now that she's met with, what's his name? Davos Golden,
Yeah.
I think we're going to get the charity event. That could bring in Sly Moore. That could bring in Masamida. Because remember that Masamida is attending all of her meetings, and we haven't had her charity event yet. I think that's going to be in these next 2 episodes. And that for me opens up so many possibilities.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's sort of what I was alluding to. These final 2 episodes, is it just, a car chase scene for 2 episodes? Or do we still get the, and don't take the word wrong, political drama of what you're kind of alluding to here with Mon Mothma? There's a political drama going on there. She's trying to navigate the waters without falling off the rails. So she's trying to stay within the system just enough to stay in the loop. And we haven't seen that come to fruition yet. And as you kind of mentioned, you did give us a scoop months ago that
Yes.
Masamita was going to be in Andor, and we haven't seen that yet. So I do expect that maybe we will get
I
more
expect
political intrigue built in, and it's not just going to be a frenetic rush. Go back to Rise of Skywalker. Kind of the complaints of Rise of Skywalker is it seemed frenetic, just ill-paced, like just fast, and like the story didn't evolve in there. It's just go. A lot of things aren't explained. Somehow Palpatine returned. Things just happen. And I don't expect these last 2 episodes of Andor to do that. And I hope that people aren't thinking that, oh, now it's time for action. Well, there will be action. We've had action already. And this
Yeah.
2-part finale, there will be action, but I don't expect it to be wall to wall, just
No,
frenetic.
I don't
paced,
either. I think you're spot on. It'll be included in there. The pacing, we can't mistake pacing for action. They're very different things. Like, the intensity of a scene doesn't necessarily rely on the fact that something fast is happening. But I do think they're going to speed us up with the Mon Mothma story, with the Senate. And Jason said the same thing. Jason said he fully expects the Senate story with Mon Mothma to really come full circle before the season's over. Now, she doesn't leave the Senate for another 4 years, so we'll see that in season 2. But how cool would it be if we get someone really high up like Masamida or Sly Moore start to suspect that something's up about Mon Mothma, and that's how the season ends with her story. And I'm still expecting her to throw Tay under the table. Someone pointed this out to me. He matches Cyril's description for Axis for Luthen. And what if Tay is thrown under the table as Luthen?
Oh, a misdirect.
Yeah,
So they think that they've killed Luthen or taken care of him, but they took care of.
of Tay, because he's the
Yeah.
only one who knows Mon Mothma's motives, and she can't trust anyone at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
Just
And
a theory.
who knows? That's an interesting thought process. You reminded me of something else as well when you mentioned about Mon Mothma being in the Senate for a little while longer. We know Mon Mothma's story largely in this time period because of Rebels.
Yeah,
And I know both of us have said this before, but if you haven't watched Rebels, now would be a great time to do so for many, many reasons.
absolutely.
One is it runs parallel. Like we are in the exact time frame right now in Andor that Rebels takes place. They're absolutely parallel. And will there be any crossover between Rebels and Andor?
100%.
Well, I don't know in these last 2 episodes it will, right?
Next
but-
season for sure.
Yeah, I would think it would almost have to, right?
I think it
and there
has
was-
to. It's too difficult to skirt around on Yavin. I definitely think that that's where they're going to bring it in. They're going to give it another. They're going to wait till Ahsoka's released, so we've seen Hera in live action, and then she'll be in Andor season 2. That's my theory, so that
Yeah.
the Andor appearance doesn't get undermined by the fact that we've already seen her in Andor season 1. I think they'll put her in season 2. And even if you don't want to watch all of Rebels, if you haven't seen it, there's a fantastic compilation on YouTube. Just type in Mon Mothma Star Wars Rebels scenes, and there's a whole video of a compilation of her scenes, and you get this fuller picture of her, where she's going, where the next few years until Rogue One is going. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if she is the star of the next couple of episodes. I know we've been focused on Andor and Melshi, but don't be surprised if it's predominantly Senate based, because I expect that story, that mini story of the charity events, all of that to come full circle.
Yeah, I I had forgotten about the charity event, and I kind of forgot about your leak, right? That you about Masamita. Um, so I kind of just had put that in the back of my mind, but now that you mention it, that fits perfectly. And Dominic's question is a pretty good one, actually. Do you think that Mon will let her daughter into the arranged marriage, maybe out of desperation? And let me throw in another little bit to it as well. Mon's husband and her daughter aren't exactly on the same page as her. Like there's a disconnect in there. Do you
Yeah.
think if they got word of it, they might say, no, we think this is a good political arrangement and let's do it?
I think there could be two ways it goes. Either Mon Mothma prevents it, but the more likely is it's going to be a tragic thing. Mon Mothma doesn't want her daughter to suffer the way that she did in an arranged marriage since she was 15, a dysfunctional, gaslighting, abusive husband, whatever you want to call him. But I kind of feel like he's gonna have the final say, and that might be another tragedy she has to give up in the name of the rebellion, because by the time of the original trilogy, Mon Mothma lost her family, or at least contact with her family. Now, the expanded universe is a bit different because Leader goes on to join the rebels on that other planet called New Alderaan. But in terms of canon, it's all about sacrifice at the moment with the characters in Andor, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mon Mothma has to let her go, get into this arranged marriage, and then when it's time to step down, she gives up everything. And that gives a brutality to her story arc, a really, like, the brutal reality of what you have to sacrifice to be part of this, because Andor does it on Scarif. Saw Gerrera lost his sister, he lost his limbs, his lung. And it's just more of that sacrifice the rebels go through.
Yeah, and in that speech that with what's the guy's name, the ISB agent, he's got a normal first name. Luthen was talking to.
Oh,
Like,
Lonnie Young.
yeah, Lonnie. All right, Lonnie. Talking to Lonnie. Lonnie's like, "Hey, I've had to give up all this stuff. What have you given up?" And then Luthen gives that great speech, right? Like, living in darkness in his mind. There's no light in there and all this. It was great speech. And it just adds Mon Mothma to that list in a very similar fashion, where she has to sacrifice her family. And I could see her husband buying into it with the political connection. He's all about who you know and, rubbing elbows with other high important people and just saying, yeah, this is a perfect connection for us. And yeah, obviously subdued. Hey, hello there. She said she's going to say, I'd rather die. But maybe, but hey, I don't know.
I don't know. But what I found interesting is Tony Gilroy said, I saw this on the Andor News Twitter account. There's a quote where Tony says Perrin has his reasons, good reasons, for being the way he is. I'm curious to see what he means by that, because so far Perrin's been pretty despicable. So I'm curious to see what those reasons are. What is his valid reason? Maybe he's a victim to the same Chandrilan traditions.
Maybe he just seems like he's interested in being important.
Yeah.
And feeling important. And, he's right there where he needs to be. He doesn't understand why Mon Mothma can't see the opportunity right in front of them to hang out with these really important people. He doesn't really care that they're problematic. It's like, well, who cares? They're important. And they're coming over to our house. So, yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. There was another point made in the chat that I saw go by. Yeah, will Lita be presented with the tradition? So will she even have a say in it? I mentioned on my show when I was doing the watch party, one of my coworkers in the late '90s was in an arranged marriage, um, and she flew from the U.S. over to Eastern Europe to be married to somebody she'd never met before.
Okay.
So uh, this kind of thing happens, and she
Mm.
was accepting of it. Right, this wasn't forced upon her. She was living here in the United States. She could have done whatever she wanted to, but she decided to fly back and be in this marriage. So if Lita was presented with the tradition, might she just be like, "Yep, let's do it. I want out of this house."
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. It's all kinds of intrigue, and the story is lining up great. Oh, I was going to bring up as well with Rebels. Not only does it parallel with Mon Mothma, you can, as you said, you can look up that video on YouTube and see it all. But uh, the Rebels is going to bleed over into Ahsoka almost certainly.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and that's what makes like right now a perfect time. We talked earlier about there's a little bit of gap here between the end of Andor and
Mm.
Bad Batch season 2. It'd be a
Yeah.
great time for folks to binge Rebels if you haven't watched it, or even if you watched it 2 or 3 times, watch it a third, fourth, fifth time. That'd be great because it's going to really inform what you're going to see, and give you more information on Mothma, where Andor's going for season 2, and the upcoming Ahsoka series. It's the perfect show to binge in the middle here.
I agree. And give it
Um,
a chance. It takes a
yeah,
while to
well,
build.
that's true too. That's true too. You got to give it a chance. At the end of season 1 starts to really catch its stride. Season 2 is a dramatic improvement on season 1, and then it's all uphill from there. Uh,
I
I think
agree.
it's I think it's a great show to watch. So if you've not watched it, or even if you have, rewatch it because it will prepare you really, really well for the upcoming series. Um, there was one other question with Andor and a possible end of season cameo or appearance of a major player um, in this era. Do you think Krennic will show in season 1? Will he
I
show in season
really,
2?
again, probably season 2, but who knows? I think Baymax brought up a good point that there are rumors out there,
Yeah,
like reliable sources, Collider
yeah,
and The Direct, who were saying Ben Mendelsohn is in season 1. But this could all be done in like a montage at the end of episode 12, just before the season finishes, to show us brief snapshots of what we're going to see in season 2. Project Stardust,
yes.
more of Mon Mothma, maybe Yavin, just a little brief cameo.
Yeah. I would love to see Krennic, and I know both of us have read Rebels Rising, as well
Yes,
as what was the
Catalyst.
other? Yeah, Catalyst. Both of those books I highly recommend. Highly, highly recommend. If you've not read a Star Wars novel and you're looking for somewhere to start, you've watched uh, 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 Andor, and you've watched Rogue One. That's all the homework you have need to have done.
I agree.
And you can read those 2 novels, and they are so stinking good. Rebels Rising, I like better than the other one. But what would you? How would you?
I
Which
like
of
Rebel
those novels?
Rising
Yeah, I
just
do
because
too.
I'm quite a big Saw Gerrera fan. I think he's a really fascinating character.
Catalyst. I take Rebels Rising over Catalyst, but Catalyst is an absolutely fantastic book. I mean, fantastic book. So if you've not read either one, and the audiobooks are available as well, here's the other benefit you have. Neither of those are recent releases. You can check them out from a library for free. You can get the audiobooks for free and listen to them. You can go to your local library and check them out and read them for free. They're very available. And they will they'll fill the, much like we talked about Rebels, kind of filling the gap between. These two books would be great. And they really start to give you some perspective of what we might see in season 2 of Andor, as well as what we could end up, as you said, right at the end of episode 12. Krennic fits. He fits the story. He fits the timeline. And it would be great to see him involved in the show. And like you said, there are credible sources that say he's in season 1. Well, we're 10 episodes in, coming up on 11. So he's obviously not going to have a long involvement in the series, if at all, in season 1. But I would love to see him.
Me too.
I don't expect any Rebels. Like, I don't expect to see Hera or Chopper, Ahsoka. None of the Rebels cast in this season of Andor at all.
I think that they'll definitely be there in season 2, or at least some of them, maybe.
Yeah, Galen Urso. That's the other salty Texas Ranger. We could get Galen Urso. I think that's again. You go back to Rebels Rising. Galen Urso and Krennic, their story told in those 2 novels, Catalyst and Rebels Rising, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Anything else for the discussion today, Meg? I know we've gone really long, and I can't thank you enough for helping me through the show today.
Thank you for having me, Santa. It's a pleasure as always.
You're absolutely the best, you guys. You can't know how much Meg does for me all the time. Nerd Mafia. Oh, here we go. Happy Veterans Day, sir. You know, I intended to open up with that today. And let me see if I can find here while we talk about Veterans Day. Yesterday, I did a parade in Columbus, Ohio, the Veterans Day Parade. And it was fun to be Santa Claus at the end of that parade. And let me see if I can bring up a picture from a long time ago in a galaxy very close to home. It was just a little bit over the state line from Ohio. I spent 2 enlistments in the United States Army, and I was in the United States Army band. Many people know, played trombone in the band there, and our good friend Nerd Mafia is in the Air Force right now. He is in service to the country, serving now. He said he's going to send me a picture. I have a picture of myself in uniform. If I can get it to come up here. Let's see if Facebook will participate. But we have another Mike Porter dad joke. We did the one earlier with R2D2. This one here in another Star Wars dad joke. Mike Porter, what do they say at disco night in Star Wars? It's time to Wookiee on down.
That's a good one.
Boogie on down. Wookiee on down. That is very good. You know, I just listened to a real weird book talking about Wookiees. The Last Shot. Have you seen that, or have you read that book?
Oh, with Hondo.
With Han and Lando.
I read that one.
Han and Lando, and you've got a droid that's so we know, like, a lot of times somebody gets their arm severed off, they get a robotic arm implanted. Well, there's a maniacal droid in that book who decides that he would like to have organic arms and legs, whatever, right? So he would kill different creatures and like sever their arms and attach them. And at one point, they had Wookiee arms attached to droid bodies. Made me think of that. It was a weird book. It was a really, really weird book. It was a decent story. It was just, wow, you know?
Just a weird one.
It really was. I don't know if I can find my veteran picture here real quick or not. Let's see if Facebook will help me out. I posted it years ago, and here, you know, since we're doing this, let me just. Where's the window here? Here it is. Put this here. So yesterday, I got to do a little photo shoot here with this adorable young girl. She was great. Here, we were having a lot of fun. It was absolutely fun. So I was doing Santa Claus work all day yesterday, but I do have a photo of myself in uniform from back in the day. Let me go to my photos, go to my, where's your photos? I thought they had one that was like, here we go, profile pictures. Here we go. So this is the guy. This is me.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day.
You look so
United
different.
States Army. Yeah. Well, didn't have a white beard, first of all. But yes. So much
Yeah, it might be the
different.
beard, actually.
It could be the
That might
beard.
indeed be the only difference.
U.S. Army back, and I see Nerd Mafia has sent me a picture. Let me see. I think I had a bigger profile picture. That was me in the United States Army band, bow tying on, dress blues. So here we go. I even made the front page of the newspaper. That was me back in the day on the Harrison Post. So I was
Well, you're about to blow on your bone.
something like that. There's our friend Nerd Mafia.
Santa, is that still you?
That's not me. That's Nerd
Okay.
Mafia.
I was going to say that can't be you.
No, it's not. That's totally not me. But thank you for your service. For all the veterans who may be listening to the show today, thank you all for your service on this Veterans Day. It's good to see you guys. I appreciate it. Daniel Fisher says he played trombone as well. Very good. Well, you guys, thanks so much for being here. It's been a rough couple of weeks for me. Last weekend, I was at a very, very low spot. Really, really struggling to make it. Yesterday, today, starting to feel down. Spending time with one of my very best friends in the whole wide world, Megan. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Thank you, Santa. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
And hanging out with all of you here in the chat. Thank you for hanging out with us today and talking Star Wars. I can't wait until this Andor episode 11 comes up. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Have a great day. Do something to make the world a little bit better place. That would be
Indeed.
wonderful. So you guys take care. And until next time, my friends, may the force be with you all. And ho, 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 Merry Christmas.